I absolutely despise the phrase grifter. We hear it all the time on Twitter and the culture war. They'll say, this person's a grifter and this person's a grifter. If you're not familiar with what this means, it's somebody who pretends to hold political opinions in exchange for money. There are people on the left and the right who are grifters. Naturally, I can point to many people on the left who are grifters, more so than I can on the right. But I assure you, there will be people on the left who would say the inverse, which is why I hate the term. I look at some people and I'm like, there's no way they believe what they're saying. That's BS. And they say the same thing about me. And how do you figure out who's right or who's wrong? It's just about who you trust. So I try to do a good job of using verified sources and trying to be intellectually honest in representing the opinions of various groups. But you know what? Because of that, there are some people who think I'm not being honest because there are secret motives behind some groups. What are you going to do about it? Here's the thing. We have this story here from the Daily Caller. $12,000 a day. How white liberals profit from pushing white privilege. It's actually $12,000 for 2 hours. I kid you not. They said in a day, yes, but they go on to say this woman did like a lecture for 2 hours on privilege and social justice and got paid 12 grand. Here's the thing though. I don't like the accusations of grifting, although it is a lucrative industry. I want to break down what's happening and what I see. And there's pros and there's cons, and I'll even be critical of myself in this capacity. But I think it's crazy when you hear someone say, like, a lot of people will accuse Candace Owens of being a grifter. And I definitely think Candace Owens falls into that more than any other person, but it's insane for you to think she isn't actually a true believer. Now, the reason I say, potentially, is because she did like the American flag thing, like you can't burn the flag. And then a lot of people were like, I thought you were just calling out censorship. So that's why I think there's some criticism there. But the main point is, and look, don't get me wrong, there's many people on the left. I'm highlighting this as a specific example because she was accused of grifting because of that. But I still think that's decently unfair because how do you know she's not a true believer? How do you know she's not just a diehard believe whatever Trump says? It's crazy to me to think that the first place you go to is you can't possibly believe the American flag should be protected by, No, I literally believe there's a ton of people who are like the flag should be exempt from, expression and speech and all this stuff. And I've heard the arguments. And I believe they're being honest. I don't think people are making up that they believe the flag shouldn't be destroyed or desecrated. And this is true for people on the left, too. There are a lot of people on the left I've seen who push this stuff, and I'm like, I really want to say they're grifters, but you can't, man. They probably believe, they believe their own BS. Like, that's, what are you going to do? More importantly, if you go around accusing someone of just doing it for money, it's an ad hominem. You're not challenging the idea, and you're not advancing the argument, and you're not going to win. It's a cheap tactic. So let's read this story from the Daily Caller. Before we get started, head over to timcast.com/donate if you'd like to support my work. There's a PayPal option, a crypto option, a physical address. Of course, the best thing you can do is just share this video if you think it's important. But I will stress, by all means, don't support me at all. I'm not like I think it's rather hilarious that I'm talking about the idea of grifting and making money, and then immediately go to and you can give me money too. So feel free not to. I do this because I have ideas I want to express, ideas I want to talk about. I'm an individual. What we do over at Subverse, I always point behind me because it's in the other office down the hall, is completely news, straightforward. It's more expensive, it's less lucrative, and it's not about making money. These channels where I produce this stuff, it's really just like I see an article, I think it's important, I see a tweet, I think it's important, and I want to talk about it. So I actually want to push back on this article a little bit. While it absolutely is lucrative to push social justice ideology at college campuses, colleges pay a lot. The bigger issue we're seeing here, let's read a little bit more. But the bigger issue here is that colleges are way too expensive, are manipulating young people, propagating this weird nonsense, but overpaying for it. It's crazy how much they pay people. It's nuts. The Daily Caller writes, white liberal academics can earn more in a day lecturing about their own white privilege than the median black household makes in 3 months. Public records obtained by the Daily Caller News Foundation and U.S. Census data show. Left-wing academic Robin DiAngelo is renowned in social justice circles for crafting the white privilege checklist and coining the term white fragility. Listening to her speak comes at a steep price. DiAngelo, who is white, charged the University of Kentucky $12,000, not counting travel expenses, housing accommodations, and meals, for a 2-hour racial justice keynote and breakout session in March, according to a copy of the speaking contract obtained by the DCNF through public records requests. She also goes on to say if phone calls are deemed necessary, it's $320 an hour. Supply and demand, baby. Welcome to capitalism. She's not doing anything wrong by expressing her ideas in exchange for the market rate. I disagree with her ideas. I believe her ideas are wrong, but I don't think she's a grifter. I think she's a true believer. I believe 99% of people are true believers. I can point to a few people left and right who are worthy of criticism for questionable principles, but that doesn't mean, even in that capacity, it's hard to say they're not true believers. What we really see here is that over the past 10 years, left-wing identitarianism has become extremely popular and acceptable in the mainstream, partly because of universities, but also because of the media. Think about this, and I'm currently working on this report, which I've mentioned. You have 2 articles. One article says police brutality. Another article says trans black lesbians are being, attacked by police. This is all about Black Lives Matter. Those stories might be the same thing, but one's stuffed with keywords. All those different keywords come together and are more likely to get propped up by algorithms because they're more prominent keywords. I am of the opinion, and this is being explored, if it's true, we'll publish it, that in all of these different articles that were being propped up by Facebook from these various outlets, intersectionality was bound to win because it combines all of the keywords into one article. And there you have it, left-wing identitarianism. Now, also interestingly, white identitarianism, the alt-right, is horribly unacceptable. In my opinion, so is left-wing identitarianism. We should treat people based on the content of the character, not the color of their skin. We should be judging people for who they are, not what they are. We can still respect, to a certain degree, identity politics and the importance of it, like the civil rights movement. But to have this overarching segregation being pushed by this idea and to target people based on their race, saying that their character comes from their race, is entirely wrong, in my opinion. It is overtly racist. However, the mainstream left finds it acceptable. And thus, because it's in high demand, because these articles do really, really well, identity grifting, as Lindsay Shepherd would call it, I guess, because it does so well, we can see that these people can charge ridiculous amounts of money to go and speak about it. Here's the thing. There are certainly people who believe in transspeciesism, who believe they were born as the wrong animal, and some people believe they're mythical creatures in the wrong universe. I kid you not. Otherkin or whatever. They're not speaking at universities for exorbitant fees. So the issue is not. I'm not trying to say that. I guess the Daily Caller News Foundation is acting like they're grifting necessarily. They're saying it's profitable, sure, but it's just the market. There is hot demand for this kind of stuff. There are many feminist speakers, big YouTubers, who went on tour speaking about these ideas because young people liked it. It's a combination of algorithmic pressure. These different keywords, outrage, justice, these things get shares. And then when 1 million people are familiar with it, and someone says, hey, how about Robin DiAngelo? Then all of a sudden everyone's like, I've heard of her. Okay, yeah, great. Ooh, she can talk about privilege and fragility. And then she does. And she gets paid a lot of money for it because of demand. That's capitalism. And hey, it's also free speech. So there certainly is money to be made, but you can't act like, people are just doing it for money. Of course she's going to take whatever she can get, right? Who wouldn't? Capitalism. Although I do think it's funny that a lot of this narrative on the left with left-wing identitarianism does still align with socialism. And you'd think she'd give that money up to the less privileged. She would recognize her privilege and say, I'm going to take this money and then donate it. Maybe she did. I don't know. Let's read a little bit on. They say DiAngelo's fee for the event was more than a quarter of the annual median income for black families, which is just over $40,000 according to U.S. Census data. The description for the 2-hour event said DiAngelo would be talking about her book, White Fragility. Why is it so hard for white people to talk about racism? It's actually really easy considering most progressives tend to be wealthy white people. So I think your assessment's wrong. Unless she's talking about poor people, but yeah. I think then the actual argument is poor white people are confused as to why you're calling them privileged when they actually live with lower quality of life than urban everyone, which includes white people too. Her website defines white fragility as a state in which even a minimal challenge to the white position becomes intolerable, triggering a range of defensive responses, These responses function to reinstate white racial equilibrium and maintain white control. Truly, a delusional, paranoid state. No, I do mean that. It's paranoid delusions. Like, there was a quote I saw, I think it was on Twitter, they said, I can't remember who this is from, when a man is trying, a man of the club is trying to pressure a woman into, hooking up, he's not doing it to reinforce the patriarchy. He just want to get laid. And that's why I think it's truly paranoid delusions. Do you know what targeted individuals are? I think I'm getting this right. There are people who really believe the government is out to get them. And they constantly believe, like, that van over there must be someone targeting them. It's like, dude, you're making this up. It's in your head. It's not real. They're doing the same thing. White privilege, patriarchy, These things are rooted in simple, concepts, but have become psychotic and insane, right? So, white privilege. I understand the concept, and to an extent, it makes sense. What's really called is in-group majority privilege, okay? If you are in an area where the majority is Asian, and you are Asian, congratulations. There is an in-group bias among all races, except for white liberals. I went over this, it's ridiculous. So they truly do live in this paranoid delusional state where they believe everything being done and every challenge and every principled opposition is actually just the fear of whiteness breaking down. And it just makes no sense. The idea of whiteness doesn't even exist to most white people. So anyway, I don't want to get into that. I wanted to basically go over the idea of grifting. And I just basically state, listen, here's the real problem. Not that she's making this money. It's because technically, the problem isn't her ideas, although her ideas are problematic. The problem is universities pay ridiculous amounts of money to hear people come talk about things. And it's bad for college students. It's a waste of money. It's jacking up tuition rates. It contributes to all of these problems. And then you do end up with people who have bad ideas living very exorbitant lives. So in the end, here's what I try to do. I try to be fair, okay? I won't call someone a grifter because they call me a grifter. And I'm like, well, I know I'm not. I'm just a dude talking about what he thinks and looking at various sources. I try to have my sources be balanced and fact-checked. When I look at stories from the Daily Caller or other outlets, I try to actually look at their source material. In this instance, because I'm slightly critical of how they're framing this, I will straight use the Daily Caller. Oftentimes, I try to find the source to avoid a biased approach. And I've recently called it out. There was a story not too long ago about a woman who went to Somalia, and it was framed by Paul Joseph Watson and Pluralist as a journalist who went to Ilhan Omar's home country, ended up getting killed. And then my response was, well, looking at the source of the story, it turns out the woman was born in Somalia, and, she was a journalist, so there is some merit to the idea. She wanted to go to Somalia and show the beauty, but it's not, you got to be careful about framing. And I try to make sure I'm doing a good job. And of course, they will then say I'm a grifter for even entertaining a concept at all. In which case, I think the argument is a waste of time, complete waste of time. But you know what? I gotta say, who ends up saying who is a grifter? It tends to be a left-wing argument. Look, you can call me biased, whatever you want. I find that the left is loaded with ad hominems and the right is somewhat. I've noticed that a lot of the left-wing commentators today are super focused on individuals instead of ideas. I'm not focusing entirely on Robin DiAngelo. I'm focusing this video on the on the idea, the concept of grifting and making money at universities. She's just, an ancillary character in the concept. But look at the progressives online. There are some of them who talk about ideas, but I can't help but notice many of them just talk about people. Now, of course, there are anti-SJW types and conservatives who just talk about people too, but I don't find them to be that prominent. I'm specifically referring to high-profile progressive YouTubers with hundreds of thousands of subs who are obsessed with Dave Rubin. I don't care. I don't care. Talk about the ideas, and they make fun of him as a person. Not interested. I can throw some shade towards anti-SJWs for doing the same thing too, but it's not. It was, maybe some of these people still exist for sure, criticizing individuals, but and I will say in the past they did more so. But where I'm at today, when I go on Twitter, I follow a wide range of people. I see more ad hominem, more attacks of character from the left than I do from the right. Of course, it exists on both sides. But the point is, the left is calling the right an independence and centrist grifter, saying we're lying. They say that me and Dave Rubin are lying about what we think. No, we just are kind of focused on the ideas we think are important. And more importantly, my main channel is focused on like modern politics for 2020 coming up. So yeah, I'm going to be talking about what the centrist websites are talking about. And they don't like that I, as an individual, find it important to talk about the failures of the Democrats. Well, that's what I like talking about. That's what I think is important and worrisome. I'm sure Robin DiAngelo believes everything she says. I'm sure she thinks the most important thing. I think she's wrong. She thinks I'm wrong. Congratulations. Let's argue the ideas and keep it about the ideas. While I will point out $12,000 a day is insane. Welcome to capitalism, because it's worth it to these people. The culture war is valuable to everyone. You know, they come out with these ideas, people push back, and then people fund both sides. What are you going to do? I'm not going to blame her for having support. Of course she does. Just means you got to really do your best to be honest, have integrity, target the ideas, and try and win people over with your ideas if you believe you're right. Same goes for anybody. I'll leave it there. Next video will be at 4 p.m. youtube.com/Timcast. It is a different channel. Stick around. I will see you there.